Do we really need another set of Flight Sim Rudders? That's the question we're going to be answering in this video with MOZA's new release of the MRP Rudders and the adjustable damper. Now, MOZA did send the MRP Rudder Pedals and the MRP adjustable damper out for review. However, they don't get to see anything in this video before it goes live. Now, this here is the MRP adjustable damper, and I kind of wish they'd actually included it in the full rudder setup, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So the MOZA MRP rudder pedals and the damper are separate products. The rudder pedals come in at $349 USD, with the adjustable damper setting you back an extra $65. Right off the bat, I think the first question people will have is, do I really have to buy the damper? And the answer to that, well, it's a little bit elusive. In some senses, yes, you do, but in others, you don't. We'll cover the reasons why you might or might not want it later in the video. So price-wise, I would call these a mid-range set of rudder pedals. Other options might be the Honeycomb Charlie, which comes in at $50 cheaper, or at the higher end of the scale, you've got the likes of the TPR at $599, almost twice the price. Based on that, I'd say these are sitting in that lower to mid-range bracket. But here's the thing, that is not where I found they sit in terms of value. For what you get, the way they're built, the features, the finish, all of that suggests something different. And we'll get into exactly what I mean by that. Let's start with the features and the design. You're looking at a full aluminium frame and internals. It has a sort of like sandblasted metal feel to most of the components, the exception being the toe and the heel rests. They're made from what looks like a tough matte finish plastic, with this sort of honeycomb webbing underneath. Now, when I first saw the heel rest design, I was a bit disappointed. But then I discovered something. You can unscrew the lower plate from the bottom to release the actual heel plate, allowing you to push the rudder like you would in a smaller GA style aircraft, essentially having your heels slide along the floor using your toes on the bottom portion of the pedals. The fact that we can have this heel rest on or off is great. Not only that, the pedals themselves can have the angle adjusted to quite a steep incline. The actual rudder design is a swing arm design with up to 15 centimeters of travel. And when I say up to, I'm talking about the adjustable stopper that can be screwed in from the back end of the rudders just to limit the range. Now, the only thing about this type of swing arm design is that it's not linear in the way that a real rudder pedal works. You're rotating around an arc, and you can feel it. It's just inherent with this type of design. The centering force can be adjusted by changing or pulling off some of the springs. It's a very basic adjustment, but it works quite well. Now, in terms of actually staying put, these are fairly large rudder pedals, and in my testing they did well both on carpet and laminate flooring and extremely well on tiles. But over time, especially on carpet, they will move just a little bit, and they'll move more if you're using your toes to push that bottom portion of the pedals. Another neat thing is you can have these butted up against a wall without any trouble. At full extension up against a wall, you've still got like about an inch gap before the back end of the pedals will actually touch the wall. So perfect for that kind of setup. But super important to know, if you have the damper installed, you cannot do that. It just kind of scuffs ever so slightly on the wall. So definitely keep that in mind if you plan to buy the rudders with the damper. And we'll talk more about the damper in a minute. Nevertheless, you're always going to get a better experience if you can hard mount them to a cockpit. As for the actual design, the visual design of the rudders, I can't say I'm much of a fan of it. It's very spacey looking. Some people love it, but for my type of flying and preferences, I'd be looking for something more sort of GA inspired. Also, they are quite wide, coming in at 54 centimeters outside to outside point of the pedals. This compares to the Thrustmaster TPRs at 51.5 centimeters, so a bit narrower there. Again, the One Wing Orions at 53 and the Virpils at 53 centimeters wide. Overall though, these are a very adjustable set of rudder pedals. More or less every adjustment you would need, other than maybe the width adjustment, which would have been nice. Now, to give you some context about the overall size, here they are sitting side by side with the Thrustmaster TPRs, and now with the Virpil Ace, and finally the One Wing Orions. So now you've got an idea about the size. Let's talk about the build quality. I don't think it matters how cheap or expensive gear of this sort of nature is. Everyone wants to feel something substantial in their hands, or their feet for that matter. Just something well built. And the MRP pedals are exactly that. The metal has a strong, nicely finished matte look to it. The construction feels heavy and solid. Build quality wise, I'd say they mildly exceed that of the Virpil Ace pedals, which are very good and around the same price, or at least they were when they were around. I think MOZA have done well here on the pricing to build quality equation. Anybody that spends $350 on these, I think they'll be happy when they pull these out of the box. Now let's talk about the most important part, the feel. Now, here's what surprised me. Everything I've spoken about so far is not including the damper upgrade. And yet, these do feel a little bit dampened out of the box, especially through that center detent. The detent is just ultra smooth, if you can even call it a detent, because it's barely there. It's a very silky transition all the way through. Now the range, the actual full range, it feels like it's enough. The pedal angle adjustability really comes into its own here, as I can get these pedal faces really quite vertical if I wanted to. And what you're looking at right here is actually only half of that vertical range. And as much as I don't like the way these rudders look, I just love the way they feel. The unit is as smooth and as precise as it gets, equaling that of the Virpil Ace rudders and the TPRs, which in terms of precision and smoothness are some of the best you can buy at this mid-range price point. But where MOZA pulls ahead is that dampened feel through the middle. And remember, that's without the damper add-on. And we'll get to the damper part soon because it's super important. But that travel through the center detent is dull and smooth, just enough to let you know you're crossing the center, but at the same time very easy to have fine inputs and hold position. Some people will love it, some people might not like it, but that's the kind of experience that I got with it. And this is one of what I would say is MOZA MRP's strongest points. As far as the feel of the toe brakes go, they are nothing special. They're smooth, but maybe lack the feel of what you might get on, say, the One Wing Orions. A very similar feel to the Virpil Ace though. So for the toe brakes, pretty much just what you would expect. Now the damper upgrade. This is where things get a little bit complicated. As we said, the damper is a $65 add-on. Now, while I think the price is fair, it would have been nice if they could have included it in the box and had these rudders, say, $399 USD. But I do understand not everybody will want to use the damper. And that feeds into the biggest surprise I got after having fitted it. The only way I can explain this is by saying the feel of the rudders without the damper is excellent across the board. In fact, the more I was using them, the more I felt these could be the smoothest, best feeling rudders I've ever tested. But when I added the damper, yes, it did improve the way they felt for me, but there was an ever so slightly sticky element to them on really minor movements. Now it's harder to feel through the feet, but it's there, much easier to feel through your hands. I don't know if you can see or hear that. And just let me reiterate, it is very minor, but it's there. Now rudder setups like this are prone to that, so it's nothing really that new. The Virpils suffer from it, maybe a little bit less. The Orions have it a little bit as well. So nothing really to worry about there. Now on top of that slight stickiness, I felt I couldn't get the damper to be soft enough. Even on its softest settings, the rudders just won't return to full center. And that's not an issue I've had with other damper modded rudders I've tested. However, I do like the feel of the damper add-on, but it does pull MOZA MRPs very much back in line with the other great examples like Virpil and Wing Wing. Take the damper out of all of them though, and the MOZA MRPs shine just a little bit brighter in terms of smoothness and the way that that center detent feels. So the next question might be, is the damper worth it? I would still personally recommend the damper upgrade, but these rudders do very, very well without it. An essential case for the damper might be if you fly choppers. In that case, it's a no-brainer, as you can remove the spring return. But if you're flying planes and you're going to order a set of these, it might be best to leave the damper out first. See what you think of the feel before splashing out another $70. Software-wise, I'm really not going to go into this much. For this product, the MOZA cockpit software is pretty basic. Just calibrate and you're done. The only thing left to do is assign the axes. And everything just worked here, up and running in 2 minutes. Now a quick recap on the things I liked and the things I didn't like so much. Starting with the good stuff, I think the price is fair. It's not too expensive, also not cheap. They're heavy and well built, which reconfirms what you're paying. The yaw axis is super smooth and accurate. They grip well on the floor and can be butted up against a wall. You can pull the heel rests off for different flying styles, and that's what we're showing in this particular configuration without the heel rests. And the adjustability is great, especially the footplate angles that can be dialed in. And the stuff I didn't like so much, well, the first thing is going to be that kind of spacey, futuristic look. And I thought they were just a little bit too wide. The damper is also a smidgen too strong, and that's really it. Other than that, there's not much to dislike. Based on everything we have gone through, is there value for money here? I'd say there is. I do think they've hit a keen price point, and for what you're paying, it's a good product. The main things are all there, and that's a smooth and precise yaw with a nice minimal center detent that's easy to control through that middle portion. Is it leaps and bounds ahead of the competition? No. If dampers were removed from the scenario completely, it's my favourite rudder pedal in terms of feel. With the damper and comparing it with the damper of all the others, it's kind of swimming in a sea of sameness, if you like. For anyone pulling the trigger, I don't see how you could be disappointed. Just know there are other similar options with similar performance, and that would be the Wing Wing and the Virpil products. And those are also semi-comparable in price. So the MOZA MRPs, a great price, a great feel, and well built. Not head and shoulders above the rest, but definitely holding their own.